Unpacking real-time cross-border payments. And the person who will be maneuvering and moderating this conversation and panel discussion will be Ms. Prachi Dharani, co-founder and CEO, Pay Global Technologies. And our revered set of speakers who will be joining for this panel discussion is going to be Dr. Emil Rubin, MD and Country Manager, India Real Financial, a Euronet worldwide company. Mr. Ramesh Narasimham, Chief Executive Officer, India Worldline. Ms. Rashmi Satpute, India Country Manager, Vice, Transfer Vice. Mr. Shinichiro Nishikawa, Head of Global Payment and Services Division, Entity Data Corporation. And Mr. Takeshi Kitu, Founder, Crowd Realty Inclusive and Vice Chair person at FinTech Association of Japan. With this context, over to you all.
First of all, good evening, everyone. And it's lovely to see so many colleagues and industry leaders at this event almost after 3 years. It's absolutely energizing to meet each one of you. And I hope it opens the door for more and more business for each one of us. With that, probably we'll start with a quick round of introduction for each one of us. So we'll probably start with you, Rashmi. Over to you, about you and what you do at Wise.
Thanks, Prachi. Hi, everyone. I'm Rashmi. I lead in the India operations for Wise, which was earlier known as TransferWise. We are basically a cross-border payments fintech, and we are listed on the London Stock Exchange. We are headquartered in UK. And over the last 10 years, we have built our infrastructure, which includes 67 licenses in around 44 countries. Real-time cross-border payments is something that we hold very close to our heart. So I'm very happy to be here. Thank you.
Thanks, Rashmi. Yes, my next, esteemed panelist is Dr. Emil Rubin. If you could,
Hi.
I know he's suffering from a bad throat, so do excuse him.
Good evening. I'm so sorry. I have a very bad throat. My name is Emil. I represent a company called Ria Money Transfer Services. We are the second largest global money transfer company. Very happy to be here and share with you our learnings today.
Thank you, Emil. Welcome. Next to him is Mr. Nishi.
Yeah.
From Entity Data.
Yeah.
Over to you for a quick introduction.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, all. Sorry. Broken. Okay, can you hear? Sorry for that. Can you hear me?
Yes, we
okay.
can.
Hi, my name is Nishikawa. It's coming from the NTT Data Japan. The NTT Data itself is mainly the IT service company for the globally. Then, also from the around 40 years back, we are providing the financial infrastructure service to Japan for a long time. Then, currently our activities is around 2010. Our services to the globally and expanding. Then, now we have the subsidiary company in Asia region. Then, here is the NTT Data Payment Service India. And in Vietnam, in Malaysia, in Hong Kong. So we have some of the group companies then. So we provide for the localized service, also the cross-border service from the Hong Kong. So that's why today, we have some discussion that we look forward to discussion for the unpacking the real-time cross-border transactions. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you. And, a lot of us have worked with Atom Technologies for a lot of time in India. Each one of us know.
So
I think
now
it's now Entity.
And the data payment services.
Yes. Thank you. And next of my co-panelist is Mr. Ramesh Narasimhan from Worldline. Sir, over to you for a quick introduction.
Thank you, Prachi. My name is Ramesh Narasimhan. I'm the CEO of Worldline India. And Worldline India has essentially a 360-degree payment suite, which includes in-store payments, online payment gateway-based payments, as well as omni-channel payments. We have a heritage. We are a European headquartered company with a heritage of more than 45 years in the payments business. And as part of this panel, our cross-border solution is something that we are very, very proud of, because we connect to over 175 countries globally. And what we offer is for overseas merchants to sell their services in India, and Indian merchants to sell their services overseas. So it's a very exciting value proposition, which we believe is the need of the hour for as we expand our horizons. And I look forward to this discussion, very interesting discussion over the next 30 to 40 minutes. Thank you. Over to you, Prachi.
Thank you. And the last panelist that we have is Mr. Takeshi Kito from FinTech Japan. Over to you, Takeshi.
Thank you. And thank you for having me today. My name is Takeshi Kito. I am a fintech entrepreneur, and today I am representing Fintech Association of Japan. Fintech Association of Japan is a non-profit organization with more than 470 members, and we are very proactive to collaborate with other fintech associations. So now we have roughly 35 international partners, and together with these partners, we are facilitating cross-border collaboration. And in addition to my role in the fintech association, I am working for some of government initiatives, and one is a legacy sandbox in Japan. So I am working for the sandbox team as a committee member. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the discussion today. Thank you.
Yeah, it will be good to see the intersection of India and Japan ecosystem from a fintech perspective, and we look forward to getting your inputs on those. So with that, we'll start our panel discussion. But before that, just a quick introduction about Peg Local. Peg Local is an early stage fintech. We focus on cross-border payments in the evolving, cross-border space in India. We focus on, consumer to business payments as well as B2B payments. And the landscape is only getting exciting by the day. So I am very, very happy to be on this panel, and, very happy to also get this opportunity to moderate the session. So with that, we'll probably start the discussion. So, you want? Okay. So we'll probably start with Mr. Ramesh. We'll start with, Mr. Ramesh. Your business, we've all seen through the years of our time at Indian payment industry grow. Cross-border, of course, as we all know, has been taking a very upward swing with all the effort that the government is making, towards exports and global commerce growing per se. Could you give us some more insights on how have you seen cross-border grow in your business? And what's your macro view on cross-border payments in particular?
Yeah, thank you, Prachi. So, great question. I'll address it in two parts. The first part is the emergence of India as a market for global companies, where you have a very educated workforce. You have the demographics are less than 45 years of age, and you have access to all methods of payment in India. And you have a requirement, and you're willing to pay for services from anywhere in the world. You're willing to buy. That's the first part of it, right? And this obviously opens up our market to many service providers from across the world who want to sell services into India, right? That's one. The other side, what you said, Prachi, is about our country's focus on exporting to the rest of the world. And that is something that, we just saw some record numbers in the last quarter in terms of our exports. So how can Indian merchants export across the world and still be able to get their payments repatriated in a digital manner, right? These are the two things which I see clearly as emergence of two major, if you can call, trends. Now, as I said, Worldline is present in 50 over countries, but is able to connect to 175 odd countries across the world, right? And that gives us a very unique ability to manage, as I said, both sides of this equation, which is to bring overseas merchants into India and help them do business in India. And the most important thing is when we do this, we offer local payment methods to these overseas merchants. You can use UPI, you can use net banking, you can obviously use cards, which creates a very big market, as opposed to only if you were allowed to use an international card, a credit card or a debit card, right? That's something that we have focused on to be able to offer all local payment methods. And in the same way, we cover payment methods in all the countries that we are present in the world. And that is a very unique value proposition that I see. And similarly, an Indian exporter who is exporting services or goods overseas, and we do the entire end-to-end for them, whether it be, authorization, settlement, and repatriation, including chargeback and refunds that anyway we do, including repatriation of funds in the currency of their choice, which could be, dollar or pound or euro. And we see a huge market in this, right? And that's exactly the emergence of what I see. As Indian consumers today, we consume some of the verticals. I'll throw some light on the verticals that we see traction on. Education. Today, you can, continue your education remotely at your house, at your convenience. And there are giants from like Coursera, etc., from whom you can buy courses. And it's we see that as a growing major segment. The other segment we see is OTT or music, streaming music. Then, of course, you'll see many other services like travel, hospitality. These have been forever evergreen services as far as cross-border is concerned, right? And so the emergence of all these verticals, and when you see some of the numbers that some consulting companies have taken around these verticals, it's all in the size of the market is in billions for overseas merchants to come in and offer their service, test their service, see the acceptance, and if required, then you come into the country and you establish a full-fledged presence in the country. Similarly, for our exporters going overseas, right? It is something that they can, sell into multiple countries. You don't have to have specific infrastructure to collect payments from different countries, and you're able to do all the work for them, take away the pain of that part, and repatriate the money back to India. Then, of course, there are airlines and hospitality companies with whom we work. So we see a huge explosion of services. And of course, there's the other market, which is the SaaS market. Today, we don't even think twice. We download an app on our phone. It costs very less, but it's something that you're settling probably overseas as well as in India. Many of those companies are present in India. So we see a huge traction across these verticals when it comes to cross-border payments. And essentially, we cater to the B2B segment. And so it's a B2B2C kind of a segment. So we've had a couple of experiences. One of the airlines that we were servicing was only doing net banking with us. And with the addition of UPI, we suddenly saw a spurt, in payments happening. Similarly, for a company that provides domain names, they saw a 3x increase in their business because they were able to offer local payment methods. Because that's what we use in India. We're very comfortable using UPI, not necessarily an international credit or debit card. So the advantage that we bring to the table is a single contract, a single integration, and you get access to 175 countries, a network of 175 countries, which is a huge value proposition as we see when we work with our merchants. And it's something that we are seeing traction build as we go forward.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. Also, some of the bases with which we set up Peg Local. Before setting up Peg Local, I was with Visa. And one of the data that we were consistently seeing was, 5 years back, India used to be like a global importer of global merchants. So, you'll see Amazon and Shell and H&M and these merchants coming to India. All of a sudden, you're starting to see a lot of Indian merchants becoming global. So you see Zoho and Paytm and Zomato, Oyo, and the list continues to grow. So I think there is absolutely an upward trend in terms of Indian merchants going global. At the same time, the GDP of the country continues to grow, and the average, spending capability for the consumer continues to grow, and hence India continues to be a market that a lot of global merchants would continue to focus on. And yes, all the right macroeconomic signals for cross-border to explore in a market like India. So thanks, Ramesh. Thanks for giving us a very merchant and a business kind of a view. And Rashmi, I know, Wise does business across multiple verticals, but something that, everyone is aware of is the remittance business, which is like a large part of Wise business. And India being a large inbound market for remittances, how have you seen the ecosystem grow for Wise in India from a cross-border P2P perspective?
Thanks, Prachi. And you are right, remittances is just one of our products, right? So we were earlier called TransferWise, and the reason we became Wise is also to kind of say that our business is actually cross-border payments rather than just cross-border P2P remittances. And that's something that we've been consistently growing across the globe.
Yes.
So while in India, our leading product has been remittances, and we have been live in India since 2016, so sending money into India. India is obviously one of our largest currencies. We are, our senders can send payments via different payment methods, whether it's UPI, IMPS, and EFT, etc. That is available. Globally, 50% or more than 50% of our transfers are now instant. And when we say instant, we say less than 20 seconds. And that's an innovation that we've been able to build because Wise has consistently been built around the pillars of convenience, transparency in pricing, cost-effective transfers, and speed, right? So yes, India is a big market. India, we are plugged into a lot of different payment methods. But I just want to take a step back and also tell you where we are seeing cross-border payments grow, right? So we started with transfers because we knew that was a broken market. We think that the existing financial institutions probably do not service the growing needs of digitalization as well as global lifestyles that a lot of our consumers are now starting to build. And when I say consumers, it's not just P2P, so it's not just like retail customers, it's businesses, it's SMEs, and I think Ramesh also touched upon it. It's merchants, it's also other financial institutions, right? And Wise has been consistently been investing in infrastructure. And when I say infrastructure, it's licenses, it's direct access to payment systems in various countries. It's also speed, and it's also pricing. And then we're also now wrapping it up to offer this to merchants, to businesses, as well as to other financial institutions. So a lot of financial institutions do not want to invest in having licenses across the world. They can just plug into our network. So we are becoming increasingly the network of choice if people want to have transparent, convenient digital payments. So I think that's where cross-border payments are also moving. And as a lot of us are leading more global lifestyles, I think that is going to become key. So.
Yeah, I can't agree with you more in terms of the licensing and what it brings along. All of us are aware of, the regimes that are there across the world, and just stitching that together is like a very, onerous task, filled with compliances and all. So I'm sure, Wise is going to find a lot of partners who would want to kind of plug into the entire strategy that you guys have built over the years. You kind of segued us to the next set, which says, how important is real-time cross-border payments from an end consumer standpoint? And, Nishi would like to get your views there in terms of how you see this overall ecosystem evolve. We've seen RTPs growing rapidly from a domestic market perspective. But how important are these RTP and real-time payments when it comes to cross-border, and what's that pain that either the consumer or the merchants face, while doing cross-border payments?
Okay, so currently the whole, not only India, is also whole the ASEAN region. Each country basis is already the RTP is already started, and so now planning and already starting the business. So then in Singapore, the PayNow is now the planning to connect to NPCI. Then so the kind of the collaboration and each direct connection is also very useful for the more faster and so more costly and the cross-border payment system. Is so we can do it. Then so currently our business in the ASEAN region is also like a fintech company. Then so we are trying to make a more localized payment services to each country basis. Because the cross-border payment itself is also the by a card scheme is also very easy to take it. But the more the Emerson mentioned is also each country basis is also focusing on more alternative payment and more local payment basis. So that's why we are now trying to make the more localized payment, the each country basis. Then, so also we have the NTT data Hong Kong in Hong Kong. So this company is also not providing the local service. So they providing is localized cross-border payment service because it means not rely on the card scheme, that we can take our Vietnam group company and our Malaysia group company and so our Indian company. Then so if the merchant want to use and want to try to expand their service to each country basis, that we can provide the more localized the alternative payment methods like QR and e-wallets, the banking and something else. It's so anything that we can provide that with the local fee structure. So that kind of situation is so our side is of course the RTP basis is also more common the standard for the worldwide. So but unfortunately, so in Japan, it still sounds striking right now. But so also we NTT Data is providing some service and infrastructure service in Japan. Then so the services can be provide some of the RTP service in Japan. So that's why so some kind of the collaboration, the bilateral and so some of the use case. Then so we can more good the services to the market, to the country, to the end users. It's my comment.
Yeah. And all of us know that at this point in time, there are over 40 countries in the globe that have domestic RTP platforms. So, more and more merchants and more transactions domestically are moving to RTP. It's only a matter of time that, cross-border payments would also move towards RTP, and that would become the base norm in which the digital transactions would happen. So, I actually want to, I don't know how your throat is and, you'll be able to take the question, but quite keen, Ruben, to get your views in terms of from a RIA financial services perspective, right? How are you seeing cross-border and real-time payments in particular kind of evolve in your business?
Okay, thanks, Prachi. A good question. Um, those who are in this space for more than 10 years, they will know the fact now how the cross-border payments and remittances have been evolved, right? We have to wait for 30 days to receive a payment in the bank account, and now we are talking about 30 seconds to receive a payment into your account, right? And this last 10 years of journey has been very incredible. And RIA, as an organization, took full advantage of this opportunity today. And sorry, um, we actually created a very nice platform, a real-time cross-border payment network. We say it's a largest one in the world today, which connects 190 plus countries, deals with 103 currencies straight. And that's a kind of payment platform we created. We basically a remittances organization, but in the last 5 years, the kind of infrastructure what we built in the organization to cater the requirements on the payment space is, tremendous. And we are up there, to grab this opportunity. And as you said, most of the countries today have the RTPs, right? You said 40 or 45 plus countries. And a lot of countries have, including India. You look at the country we created, the NPCI created such a beautiful platform, for us. The infrastructure is tremendous here, and it's up to an organization to utilize this infrastructure and provide a solution to the customers.
That's absolutely correct. And I think more and more players want to start participating in global commerce in some manner or other. And I think the core work of creating the right infrastructure has been done by a lot of organizations, including a lot of us on the panel here today. So, we spoke about organizations and what they are doing. Takeshi, quite keen to get your views, you've been looking at, Japan's fintech ecosystem. You are here to see the massive Indian fintech ecosystem. What's your bird's eye view when you look at markets, from your perspective of how things are going in India, in Japan, overall from a global perspective on cross-border payments?
Okay, yeah, thanks for the question. As a fintech association, we are trying to push our ecosystem and the companies go international. And as Nisa mentioned, that we are still struggling with being connected with international infrastructure and ecosystem. So, on the other hand, India has a growing market and with huge population. It's compared to Indian market, the Japanese market is shrinking and aging. So totally different market we have. So we fintech association is quite proactive to bridge this ecosystem as a market. And in India, we have two partners. One is Gift City, so it's a financial center in Gujarat, and another one is a FICCI. So in the past 3 years, we have closely collaborating with these Indian partners and trying to bridge Japanese payment or financial infrastructure and the Indian one. So for example, we have talked with NPC International, and they asked us to bring their infrastructure and solution to Japan. So I coordinate some dialogue with Japanese stakeholders such as governments and regulators and some companies, and I hope we can achieve this kind of a cross-border collaboration between Japan and India. And another topic is I would like to touch on is regulation. As I mentioned, I am working for the Japanese government's regulatory sandbox, and to facilitate cross-border payment or other related financial transactions, we have to handle this kind of regulations internationally. So I think regulatory sandbox is one good solution to create a cross-border framework or a regulatory framework for cross-border transactions, including payments. So I am very keen to have this kind of a cross-border regulatory sandbox collaboration with Indian sandboxes.
So you see a lot of opportunity for players in India and Japan to collaborate, trying to solve for cross-border payments. So yeah, I think, there'll be quite a few players in the ecosystem who might reach out to you after the session and, look forward to those conversations going. Taking the discussion forward, right? Rashmi, quite keen to get your view in terms of what more can be done into this cross-border payment environment to kind of take it to the next level, both from a product as well as from a regulatory standpoint to kind of make it more seamless and, probably the next phase of growth.
Thanks, Apache. So I think there are 3 or 4 things that more and more customers are expecting out of cross-border payments, right? One, I think real-time now has become like the baseline, even for cross-border payments, because domestic digital payments have become real-time. So I think real-time payments is one of the key things that will go a long way in improving customer experience. The other thing is also pricing. We think at WISE, at least, we have this mission of transparency and mission 0, which is 0 fees eventually for cross-border payments, because we actually believe that sending a cross-border payment should be as easy as sending an email. Today, it's not like that. Obviously, because there are a lot more checks and balances that have to be done in cross-border payments, and we accept that. But we also think that pricing is something that's key, and transparency in pricing is very key for a customer to know what they are paying for. And what do I mean by transparency? So there's like a couple of elements to the pricing, right? There's the FX markup, where a lot of institutions charge a lot of money, and then there is an upfront fee. At WISE, we believe that we offer customers the mid-market rate, which is like, the rate that they'll actually see on Google, and then an upfront fee. And then we actually give the customer a clear indication of what their beneficiary will receive. and at what time will the beneficiary receive the payment. So this is transparency, right? Because even from a pricing and a speed perspective, we are very transparent. I think that is one key aspect that we have seen evolve, and that's how we have seen customers move to our platform, whether it's businesses, whether it's retail customers. I think that's key. From a regulatory perspective, I think we have seen a lot evolve in the last 10 years. For example, we have the Pay Now and UPI collaboration happening, which means that real-time payments again will become baseline. So from a regulatory perspective, we also work with regulators in a lot of countries to have access directly to payment systems. How does that help? Again, it goes back to cutting the middleman out of the picture so that cost and speed again is in our control, right? And that's how we can offer the best experience to consumer payments. That's what I think is key. Transparency, real-time payments, and then, of course, customer convenience.
Yeah. I think yes, ticks on all the boxes and can't agree more on transparency per se. We face that in our business day in and day out, where both the consumer and the merchants are quite keen to understand what exactly is going to happen. Still, there seems to be some amount of question mark, through the transaction. Ruben, quite interested to get your view as well. How do you see product regulatory framework evolving in the ecosystem from a next generation real-time cross-border payments?
I agree to what Rashmi was about, real-time payments, transparency, and the cost, and also other important in tracking the transactions. It's also very key when it comes to the cross-border payments, and that's something which is not currently very available in most of the systems, and that should come in near future. The tracking of those transactions and the KYC procedures should be simplified for the customer. I agree, it should be as simple as sending an email. At the same time, it should be very simplified process on onboarding and the KYC and the documentation process. These are the things going to call a shot on the cross-border payments. And to me, tracking is more important.
Yeah. I think tracking also from a perspective when it comes to cross-border payments, the AML, the PMLA, the underlying risk, and how the overall ecosystem evolves from a perspective of making it more simplified, so that more and more participants in the ecosystem are actually able to participate and scale the businesses. I see a lot of businesses taking a step back when this entire conversation around AML and PMLA kind of comes in. And I think there is definitely some room of, laying out rules like the KYC has evolved to a level where, from a RBI perspective also there is a master circular which talks about how do you kind of do a KYC of the customer. I think something around that, quite black and white from an AML and a PMLA perspective to the next level would probably help players in the ecosystem, more players to join the bandwagon of cross-border payments and the evolving ecosystem. So I think, yeah, you raised a very valid point in terms of how do we kind of move forward. We do have some time on the, for the panel, and hence Nishi would also kind of get your views in terms of what's the next level from your perspective for the cross-border payments.
Yeah. Okay, thank you for your question. The already mentioned the regulatory matters and some more transparency and some more simplify the all the process. I also totally agree with you. Then so my view is also this kind of more simplify is also needed for the fintech the powering. So they have the so good the technical perspective. They have good the approach to that. Then and also the need to the bank side is so need to more collaborate. Either so like the open API banking initiatives or something like that. Then so the of course the from the central bank perspective, it so need to monitor and so need to control how the transaction flow and the money flow is very, very important. So that's why the fintech and the bank side and the merchant side and the consumer side, of course. So each the entities and the groups is so more need to collaborate. Then so more opening. Then so their information, the opening. Then so customer side, so very easy to access the one data from the bank and from the fintech. It's something like that. It's kind of the collaboration. It's very, very important for the more convenient, more simplified transaction. It's my comment.
Absolutely. And we've been debating within our teams, saying that there are so many organizations that collate data from a credit underwriting perspective. But when it comes to, a cross-border transactions of, reporting any kind of fraud or AML issues, there is no, centralized system that can be utilized by multiple organizations to kind of, dip in as the volumes kind of keep scaling. Thank you, Nishi. Ramesh, your last views in terms of what more can be done to kind of take cross-border to the next level?
Yeah, thanks, Prachi. I think a lot of people have already commented a lot, but I think spreading this awareness is also important, Prachi. We are in the payments industry. We know that the fintechs have come in, companies like ours have made this far more nimble, easy to use. But reality is, across the board, a lot of people are not aware of this. People still deal with the traditional way through the banks, and that's something that I think, if made aware, that would really help in growing this entire business. The second one, absolutely, Prachi, you talked about it. I think compliance in this area where you talk about AML and other things, I think absolutely we need to be clear, across regulations, across countries, since we are moving money across countries, whether it's KYC, whether it is, anti-money laundering check. I think these all become very crucial, and we don't want any missteps. Early on when there is a little bit of liberalization and there are companies like ours which are able to offer this as a service, we don't want any missteps, because then the regulator comes down, making it, putting some more constraints so that we do the right thing. So I think in addition to all the other things the other panelists spoke about, I think spreading awareness of these solutions, being available, giving confidence to merchants, right, that it's fine to use. Because the other day, I don't know if you saw this news article which said, don't use these Forex companies, in economic times. So people get scared as a result, and then, they say, no, let me go to my, bank and do this transaction. But I think an awareness that this is another thing that even the regulator supports, and it's properly done with a proper OPGSP license. And these are some of the things I think can be additionally done to help us grow this part of the industry, Prachi.
Yeah, I think, probably, and going back to my experience at Visa, right? Visa certifies partners and then puts it on the website saying that, these are like certified players. So, while there is a blacklisting, if there is any kind of whitelisting, that kind of also helps the ecosystem further from an awareness building perspective. So, yeah, Ramesh, absolutely agree with that. And Takeshi, any closing remarks from your side in terms of what more can be done for taking cross-border payments forward?
Yeah, I totally agree with what other panelists mentioned, and AML and CFT related topics is quite important for all of us. And also, as Prachi mentioned, blacklist and whitelist sharing is among financial institutions and the PSP is quite important. But there's some regulations for cross-border data sharing and transfers. So we need to solve this kind of conflict between data protection or data sovereignty or privacy protection and cross-border data sharing to fight with money laundering and other crimes and frauds. So solving this conflict and issues is, I think, one of the biggest topic to bring cross-border real-time payment to a next level.
Yeah.
That's my opinion.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, I think, with that, cross-border is complex. Cross-border has its own set of challenges. It has its own set of, giving highs to organizations like each one of us when we are able to actually solve the problem for the consumers, for the merchants. And with the advent of growing global commerce, I think more and more conversations around these would only help participants in the ecosystem to come together, work together, and create products and services for the end consumers to help cross-border grow. So I thank each one of you for giving time and being on this panel. It's been quite an interesting conversations. I've taken down a few notes which I'm going to work upon once I'm back. So thank you, everyone. I'm not sure, do we have questions from the, yeah, if anyone has any questions from the audience, we'll be happy to answer. So, yeah.
Hi, this is Priyam here. I'm a part of the Global Sales and Partnerships team at PayU. My question actually is, I mean, thank you for your insights, but my question kind of relays into what you spoke about. How do you think can we improve access to payment systems for cross-border solutions? Where I'm coming from is that cross-border payments is highly regulated, and if I may be so bold, sometimes the regulations are a bit restrictive in nature, and I see a huge gap between how things operate domestically and how things operate internationally. So being in this space, what is it that can be done specifically for non-bank PSPs to improve this sort of access?
Rashmi, you want to take that? You guys have mastered the art of having multiple licenses.
I think the question is better asked where the RBI presence is right now. But I think it's a journey, it's an evolution, because it took us a while as WISE itself, having licenses in various jurisdictions, to build that confidence with the regulator that we can plug into payment systems. And this is a very complex matter, right? There are a lot more evaluations that the regulator will also do on us as a technology company, as a solvent company, before they give us access to payment systems. So it's a journey. I think maybe in India we are a little behind, but I'm sure that this will be a journey that we can go to, right? And this also comes from the fact that there have been so far very few organized larger players in the market. And that is how confidence will be built by the regulator as well. So if you see the Indian ecosystem, there have been a lot of these smaller currency exchanges, etc. That probably is not the best ecosystem to be allowed to plug into payment systems. But as more and more organized players, and the other panelists on the dais itself have also said how they're building cross-border payments. But as this grows and as more organized players come in the system, I think then there'll be confidence from the regulator to give that access. But it's going to be a journey, and it's going to be a journey that all of us will need to be, plugged in together to work with the regulator to go forward. Yeah.
I think we have one more question on the back.
Hi, good evening. This is Krishna. I head the product for RBL Bank Payments Division. The question is, with the new guideline on BBPS, where bill payments are allowed for the non-resident remitters, how do you see this panning? What's the potential? Do you think it's a good development? And will there be a good traction on that?
I'll probably take that question. We just got an award today from NPCI being, the first player to solve for BBPS cross-border payments. So look, a background on that, we are a country which has the highest number of non-residents outside. So I think the official number stands at 32 million, right? Most of these have their families, their friends back in India. They also invest into properties here in India. And what BBPS platform kind of offers on the platter is over 24,000 and growing merchants in this space to be available on one go for these NRIs to kind of, make the payment. So I think it's definitely a pain area is what we've realized, because a lot of these bill payment companies on their own platform do not accept any kind of an international or a cross-border payments. So it is definitely, hitting the right chord in terms of, solving a problem. At the same time, we are also very strong believer of, this product will find its right scale with players who, already do a lot of remittance business into India, because they have the customers who are sending money to India. When bill payments kind of becomes a value-added services, which could lead to a lot of convenience for their platforms to kind of start also now, providing bill payments as a service. As more and more categories and more merchants get added, it's only going to help the NRIs, pay the bills in a seamless manner. So we'll see in terms of over the next period of time in terms of how it kind of scales, but it's definitely solving the right problem.
I myself Dharam from product team of Entity Data Payment Service. So recently you might be knowing that the UPI has been going international for few of the players, okay, for the few of the countries. So when we say the remittance or the inward from the cross border, how do you think that it can compete? There's an alternative option of the SWIFT GPI, or what do you think about that when you go for the RTP that we were talking about? So is there any insight on that?
Sorry?
The question?
The question is with UPI, finding the right bilateral partnerships outside the country, could it become an alternate to probably a SWIFT or any other rails for, remittance to come in? Have I got the question correctly?
Correct.
Yeah.
Possibly, yes.
Okay.
And I just spoke about one of the services what we are launched in RIA, a platform called Dandelion, which is the largest real-time cross-border payments, and which is a kind of replacing your legacy messaging platform.
Okay.
So there will be more such new services will be available, and UPI is yes.
Okay. Thank you.
I think we have time for one last question.
Well, it's not a question, it's actually a comment. I'm surprised to not have heard the word blockchain in a panel discussion on real-time cross-border payments. Was that deliberate?
I think, blockchain and crypto in India, probably in our head is all blocked, and probably that's the reason it kind of did not find, conversation on the table. But I'm not sure if any one of you want to give any insights of any work that, you folks are doing on blockchain in any of your platforms. Yeah, I think not on this panel. All right. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for giving time, to the panelists, to each one of you. It was lovely, having conversations, and look forward to meeting all of you during the event. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Prachi. Thank you.